Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. Today we are talking about ISO 42001 and why your business needs the new AI standard. So welcome to all of you who have joined us. I know there's still a few people logging on as we speak, so that's absolutely fine. They can join us as and when. That's great to have you all here on a Friday afternoon, and thanks for choosing to join us on your Friday afternoon. So just quickly before we get started, your microphones are muted, there's no videos or anything like that on. It means that you get the best possible sound quality. Please do though use the chat function and the Q&A, so you can see them down the right hand side there, either the Q&A or the chat. The Q&A comes direct to yourselves. It's not information for everybody on the webinar. The chat everybody can access. So either or is absolutely fine. Ask away, guys. We want this to be as interactive as possible. If you've come with a burning question, feel free to put it in now. And we'll try and pick some of these up as we go. I'll keep an eye on it. But what we won't do is get bogged down just too heavily in one topic. We do have time at the end for a question and answer session, so we'll keep the bulk of it to then, and it means then that everybody benefits from the question and the answer as well. So, but feel free, please do add anything in there. No question is a silly question, because I can guarantee if you're thinking it, somebody else is also thinking it. So delighted to take any questions, and we're very lucky today to have two experts joining us. So get those questions in there. So you possibly will know me as Flora. I've probably met you on previous webinars before. And today we are joined with Peter and Rich. So Peter, I'm just going to pass to you first to introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks very much. Yeah, welcome everyone. My name's Peter Johnston. I'll apologise now before we start. I'm recovering from the flu, and although I feel fine, my voice seems to be lagging a couple of days behind. So if I'm a little bit croaky, that's why. So I've been with Citation for 3 years now. I've been working with ISO since just before 2000, and I've been working mainly with 27001 for the last 12, 13 years, and then for the last 3 years, a lot of work has been done on 42001. So 27001 and 42 are the two subjects that I work mostly in, and looking forward to being able to pass over hopefully some information that's useful to you all today.
Brilliant. Thanks, Peter. And Rich.
Hi, Ataya. I'm Rich. I'm the AI innovation lead here at Citation Group. We have a dedicated AI team. So a lot of the projects that are around generative AI, around data science, fall to us, and I am the group's spokesperson on this occasion to talk through some of the more exciting AI things that you might hear about and you might want to learn a little bit more about today.
Amazing. Thank you very much for joining us today, guys. That's brilliant. Okay, so just before we get started though, just a little bit more about who we are. Obviously, I'm sure you know what ISO is, and ISO are obviously standards that they're a collection of best practices that have been agreed on by industry experts from around the world, and help make sure that the consistency and reliability of organisations that conform with them. So, and ISO's ABS and ISO standards play a real pivotal role in enhancing efficiency, quality and safety in various areas. So you may well have joined us because you already have some, or you're thinking about getting down that route, or whatever it might be. There's a real mix here today, so please do make it a valuable session for yourself. So we can completely support everything you need to achieve and to maintain ISO certification. So it's taking you through the entire process, which I think is the key thing for everybody, is getting that help and support that you need to get it right. Over 30,000 management systems implemented. We've got over 60 consultants nationwide, and we've been in the business for over 30 years. And it's about tailoring the management system for your business. So it's got to be right for you. It's got to be right for your needs. And lots of people now are looking to ISO and various other accreditations, but it comes up now in tendering. There's so many different areas that ISO is so important in a business, and certainly something we're going to learn more about today. So which is fantastic. We're also part of the Citation brand family, so you may well have come across, or may do in the future, come across some other aspects of the brand family as well, but it is all there to help and assist you to run the business you want to run. That's the important part. So what are we going to talk about exactly today then? So we're going to have an introduction to AI and machine learning, the evolution of artificial intelligence, how AI is being regulated, an introduction obviously to ISO 42001, and how you can get certified. So we're covering a lot of ground in the next hour. So as I say, pop any questions in as they come up. But before we get started, I'm going to ask you a quick question. So, and if you can just click on either A, B, or C here, guys. So how confident are you in your current understanding of the ISO 42001 standard? And that might be why you're here today. So, don't be honest. It just gives us a good idea as well about where you're at with it, what your understanding is. So just click on either A, very confident, B, somewhat, or C, not confident at all. And as I say, there is no judgment here. It is very much to get a wee bit of an understanding, because we've got a variety of different businesses and organisations with us today, which is fantastic. But just to give us a bit of an understanding of where you're at is key. So, okay, I can see a number of you responded there, so that is perfect. So let's have a wee quick look at okay, so not confident at all. Guessing that's why you're here. So we will change that hopefully for you. Some of you very confident, somewhat confident, 14.3, and 82.1 not confident at all. And that's exactly what we would expect as well. So hopefully over the next hour then you will have a clearer understanding of exactly what ISO 42001 is. So to get started then, I'm going to hand you over to Rich to take you through initially about AI. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Flora. So we're going to start right at the basics because as we mentioned, we've got people from a range of different experiences here. So we're going to start off with just what is AI and what do we mean when we're talking about artificial intelligence. The really, really basic way is to try and get machines to do stuff that humans can do without us giving them instructions. So you think about how we tend to use machines now, how we tend to use computers, we tend to write in what we want it to do. Now, a lot of what artificial intelligence does is takes that step away. It doesn't require us to have that intervention as human beings. We also sometimes think about machine learning when we're talking about AI. Now, machine learning as a concept is where you have some statistical data maybe, and you can take that and you can make predictions based on that. So if you've got some structured data, let's say you've got some sales records, you could take those sales records and project what you think the next quarter is going to hold for you. And that's you can do that using machine learning and help. And as essentially the machine will learn how to do stuff. If you combine those two things, then you have something which becomes very, very powerful. Now, artificial intelligence is not a new term. We hear about AI and Gen AI quite a lot, and I'll go through exactly what Gen AI is in comparison to regular AI in a moment. But the term was first coined way back in the 50s with a guy called Alan Turing, who you may have seen the film with Benedict Cumberbatch, and that is where that film is about his life. It's the story of his life. Alan Turing was the first person to really bring the concept of artificial intelligence to the masses. So when we talk, that's what AI is. So, but what is it not? There's a lot of worry around AI in some cases. A lot of people watch Terminator and they think and they see what's happening now and they're going, okay, right, we've now got Skynet. We're not there. We're a long way away from that. We don't need to worry about that in any way, shape, or form. On a slightly less encouraging note, we're also not at a place where we're going to have C-3PO stood in a room with us or any other robots from science fiction. We're not there. They're not that clever just yet. And equally, there's a whole different arm of robotics that needs to get to a point where we can include the AI to be able to even reach that. And probably the most important point is it's not the end of the world. We're not worrying about anything here that is going to create a nuclear Armageddon because there are lots of rules in place. And as you'll see in a moment, there are lots of rules being put in place to make sure that doesn't happen. So if we look at how we've got to where we are today with AI, we go all the way back to during the war, and we had the Enigma built over at Bletchley Park. That's the start of modern computing as we know it today. I've mentioned Alan Turing there, and we can move forward through the timeline. We've got in the 60s, the first thing that if you think about how we interact with AI today, a lot of that is through chat. And you think about ChatGPT, we're talking to that through a chat interface. The first ever chatbot was called Eliza and was invented in the 60s. We gradually go through time. There was a bit of a winter of discontent, if you like, with AI. It's during the sort of the 60s and 70s. After that point, nothing really happened in the 80s. It wasn't until 1997 when everything came back into the forefront, when Garry Kasparov was beaten in a game of chess by an artificial intelligence. Now, that was then really seen as something that was going to completely change the way that we do things, because no one thought up to that point that AI would be able to beat anyone at chess, because chess is supposed to be one of these games that it uses a lot of logic, a lot of intelligence to be able to play. So it was a really big turning point. Wasn't then for another sort of 20 years or so until we started thinking about it in the palm of our hands. And when Siri was released in 2008, and subsequently things like Alexa, Google Assistant, that really made us think about AI in the home and on the go, and how can we use it all the time. At the time, we also had other things going on as well. Facebook had started to use algorithms, and other social media companies had started to use things to try and track our usage. Amazon was starting to use AI in various different ways. But this was us being able to actually feel it and hold it. And then in 2016, there was a game called Go, and AI was able to beat a human at Go. Now, Go was the next step up from chess, it was seen as. And the fact that a human was beaten was, again, quite a bit of a game changer. But when we're talking about game changers, nothing really even comes close to what happened in 2022. And I try and say a couple of years ago, and then you realise actually it's 2025 at this point. But in 2022, in November, ChatGPT was released, and that changed everything. So ChatGPT is what we call a generative AI. Now, before, when I was talking about AI, I was talking about how AI is used to, we're teaching computers to do stuff without us giving it any intervention. But we have to teach the computer to do something. Now, what generative AI does is it generates something from nothing. So that could be text, that could be images, that could be videos. But the point is, it's generating something without having loads and loads of instructions. We do have some prompts, but we don't have loads and loads of instructions, and it can generate stuff. So on the 30th of November 2022, ChatGPT was released by OpenAI to the public to start playing with. And that really opened everyone's eyes, and it opened the door to the way that things change. It also was really, really quick when it came to the uptake. So Netflix, it took them 3.5 years. Now, admittedly, Netflix's model was slightly different to begin with, but it took 3.5 years to reach 1 million users. Facebook took 300 days to reach 1 million users. ChatGPT took 5 days. It was ridiculously quick at how fast the uptake was, and that has just expanded exponentially. When the app was released, it was the fastest downloaded app, and with every subsequent update that it has, it becomes, again, one of the fastest used things. Now, since ChatGPT was released, we've had loads of other examples of generative AI. Anthropic have got a set, Google have got a set, Meta have got their own set. So there's lots of different generative AIs out there to use, but ChatGPT is the one that we talk about when we're thinking about it, because that was the thing that really opened everyone's eyes to it. So what can you do with it? You can do all sorts with ChatGPT. You can plan holidays, you can make recipes. I used it to help me build a wall. I had a hole in between two rooms. I took a photo, I took the measurements, and I asked it what I needed to do. These are not DIY hands. These are very much sit in front of a computer hands. It was able to help me understand exactly what I needed to do. So you can use ChatGPT for a range of different things. But AI in general, we see it all over the place. When you've got the working out what the quickest route is with your sat nav, even to the point with Google Maps, when you've got the traffic indicators, both of those use AI. And when it's coming up with new routes for you, it says you've got a faster route, it uses AI to work that out. when you're using Spotify or when you're looking at Amazon and you're getting recommendations for the next playlist you should listen to or the next book you should buy. AI is making that decision. AI is doing that. It can also help with fraud detection. One of the biggest use cases for AI within the financial industry is to help detect fraud. On the flip side, you've also got a lot of criminals using it for various phishing purposes. You may regularly get, and if you're anything like my phone, regularly rings and you start speaking and the voice doesn't sound quite right. And it tends to be an artificially generated voice that's doing that. And it uses an AI in the back end to help generate that conversation quite quickly. So what can AI do for you in your daily lives? It can help replace some repetitive tasks. If you think about, you've regularly got to write notes in a meeting at the end of a meeting. You could have a transcription of your meeting, get AI to do those summaries, to do those actions for you. Anything that's particularly manual or simple decision making, AI can do that for you. It can also help you and do sort of in-depth analysis. It can take unstructured data and turn it into something structured. So if you think about Trustpilot reviews, you could take a bunch of Trustpilot reviews that are completely unstructured, completely random from various different people to write in various different ways, and you can then understand trends, understand what people are saying about your business with AI really, really quickly. You can help with problem solving. I mentioned the wall, and you can help with creativity. I once used it to help me write a book. It's really, really cool with what you can do with it. What it doesn't do, though, is it cannot touch what we actually do. It's not even it doesn't come close to real human interactions. It doesn't come close to real human writing and words. You can tell the difference between an AI generated thing and a human generated thing. It doesn't touch that in kind of that personality that we have when we've got something that is written by an actual person. I mentioned at the beginning that there is regulation coming in, and that's really important because with the new technology, governments tend to be quite slow on the uptake, and it tends to take a while to kind of understand what the risks are and where we should stand in it. Now, various different countries are coming up with various different sets of guidelines and rules around how to use AI. Some much more open than others. Japan, for example, has quite open rules on what you can do with AI and is kind of very much fostering innovation. Australia, on the other hand, is very much trying to lock things down. The EU has tried to look for a bit of a middle ground, and they very, very recently have enacted the EU AI Act. Now, if you're thinking of kind of what does this look like, how does this feel, maybe a couple of slides just explaining this, but if you think of GDPR, it's kind of like that. It's a similar feel to that, but with AI. It applies, and this is really important, not just to people within Europe. So obviously us no longer being in Europe, you might think, well, that doesn't really apply to me. Why are we even talking about this? But if you have clients within Europe, then you do need to be considering this. So if you, for example, have some clients in France or Spain or Italy, then it is something that you need to be considering because you are going to fall under the remit of this. In the same way that everywhere across the world, every website across the world, now we have to tick the yes, I accept cookies button because we could be those people could be in Europe somewhere. So it's taking place, it's starting to take effect now. It is the real first kind of hurdle is in August 2025, and over the next couple of years, there will be more and more rules introduced as we go along. Now, when it comes to UK rules, Starmer seems to be quite enthusiastic about bringing in some rules around AI. But as I say, a little bit slow on that take. He's got other things to do. But one thing that is worth noting is that there are very, very big fines if we do not apply with the EU AI Act. It can be up to 7% of global turnover if you're found doing one of the prohibited practice. Now, it's not there to try and kind of stifle innovation. It is very much there to try and set some good practice, make sure that we are all being ethical citizens across the globe. So what is its aim? Its aim is really to kind of make sure that all AI systems are still human-centric, and as I mentioned, they are still ethical. What it does is it categorizes anything that you build with AI into 4 very, very, very succinct categories. So the first one is minimal risk, which has no regulation at all. So that's things like spam filters. It's things like your AIs in video games. It's things like your Spotify playlist recommendation engines, right? There's nothing there that is that's saying we can't do that. In fact, it's actively encouraged. The next one is a limited risk. So with that, we have these transparency regulations. So with those transparency regulations, essentially what you've got to do is you've got to kind of say that this is what you're doing, that you're using AI to do this. So if you're, for example, you're using AI within a chatbot, at the bottom, you might just have a little disclaimer that says this chatbot uses AI to produce its answers. Similarly with deepfakes, if you are using that for any particular marketing material, then you would have to state that somewhere. The next two are the ones that come with a little bit more work attached to them. So high-risk activities have very, very strict regulations. So things like self-driving cars, anything to do with healthcare, anything to do with education, anything to do with surveillance. Those require you to have very specific risk assessments in place, and they require you to keep a log of absolutely everything you have that is in that high-risk category. Everything also needs a level of human oversight. So it can't be just an automated AI system. You need to have something in place where the humans can say yes, no, and can have some sort of say on that. And the last one there is the unacceptable risks, which are things which are completely illegal. Social scoring systems, for example. They are not allowed. They're completely outlawed by this. You're not allowed to do any crime-fighting activities with AI in that respect either. So there's lots of things there that we need to be aware of when you're thinking about integrating AI under the Act to make sure that you are remaining compliant. So the last slide from me here. So just to understand what is good practice, make sure that you know what AI systems you have, you know what AI systems you're using. So it is, here at Citation, we have a log of every AI tool that we use, whether it is classed as high risk or not. That is purely for us to be able to know that we've got all of these systems. It's also really useful, and this is quite a handy tip, if you have existing services that you use, make sure you've got a log of those as well, because they might be switching AI on and you might not quite realize it at first. So it's a good idea to understand those. Have good management practices around them. Just as I say, have those logs. Make sure there's lots of training within your team so they understand how to use AI properly, how to use it ethically, how to use it responsibly. And know if you're a provider or a deployer. So similar to GDPR, where you've got some very specific definitions of who's what. Providers and deployers. So providers are people that are generating the AI themselves. So OpenAI, for example, is a provider. Anthropic is a provider. Or you're a deployer. So I'm sorry, on the provider thing, if you build your own models, you're a provider. A deployer is someone that is using another person's AI to deliver a service. So if, for example, I created a chatbot that used OpenAI's API, OpenAI would be the provider, I would be the deployer, because I would be deploying that chatbot in my space. Make sure you're not doing anything prohibited with AI. You really don't want to be slapped with those fines. And finally, make sure any extra reporting you're doing with those high-risk activities, you are actually having those reports. You do have to report those up to the regulator as well. So that is all I have on kind of the basics of AI. And now Peter will be able to take you through a little more with some of the information about 42001.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Very informative as ever. And every time I listen, I learn something new all the time. So amazing. Thank you so much. And I will hand you over now to Peter to take you through the 42001. Thanks, Peter.
Sure, thanks. So now that we know a little bit more about AI and what it is, what it isn't, and why it's important, what we're looking specifically at here is the ISO 42001. So this is the new management standard that was released in 2023 for people to be able to achieve relating specifically to managing AI. So what is it? A couple of things. First of all, it's a structured framework. When we say framework, it's a bit like a blueprint. It's a structure. It's a framework that allows you as a business to safely, ethically use AI, ensuring things like transparency, accountability, reliability, things like that. Where did it come from? It was developed by a committee of experts. So that was the IEC, who are the International Electrotechnical Commission, and also ISO, who are the International Organization for Standardization. And for someone like myself who has dyslexia, it took me many years to realize that ISO is not the acronym for International Organization for Standardization. It actually comes from the Greek word isos, meaning equal. And the idea was that if they were to just use the acronym of the name of the organization in different languages, it would actually change. So that's where ISO actually comes from. So what's its purpose? As I mentioned, it's allowing businesses to safely and ethically use AI. That's the important thing here. And it takes a risk management approach. Similarly with the 27001, it's very much a structured approach. It's based on understanding your own risks and then putting in what is right for you. It's brand new for everyone. It's a brand new set of skills. And the important thing is that it needs to be consistent, valid and comparable is what the standard talks about. Understanding how we manage risk or how we even identify and document risk is completely new to AI. So that's where this framework can be really, really useful. And the resulting outcome, why would we do this? Well, we want to build our reputation. We want to get trust. We want to ensure compliance. As Rich just said, some of the fines that are out there are absolutely astronomical and could ruin businesses. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything right. And I think that one of the reasons why people are especially jumping on this so quickly is because they want to get a competitive advantage. If you can stand up and market that you are the first or you are one of the first in your area to be certified to this standard, I think that's going to have a massive competitive advantage for people. So what does it look like? For anyone that's done any other ISO in the past, whether you've done 9001 for quality or you've done 27001 for information security, they're all built on what's known as Annex SL. So they all look very similar. It will make your life a lot easier if you've ever done an ISO before, but don't worry if you've not. What does the document look like? Often I'm asked, it's 64 pages long, and it's split into mainly 5 sections. So mandatory clauses, which is what looks very similar to the other standards. You've then got 4 annexes. Annex A is the important one, similar to 27001. This is where there is a list of controls, and we'll run through some of those in a minute. Annex B is your implementation guidance, and C and D are information only. So it's not anything there that you have to be able to demonstrate compliance with, only the mandatory clauses and the Annex A. So looking in a little bit more depth, what do the management clauses cover? As I say, for those of you who already have ISO 9001 or 14001 or 27, you'll recognize these chapter names. So context of the organization is essentially there to just understand who we are as a business, what affects us, who do we affect, who affects us, what is the scope of our management system. Sections like that are what's covered in context of the organization. Moving on to 5, it's all about leadership. It's all about making sure that the leadership of the organization gets behind this, that they fully endorse it and support it. It's about developing your policies, and it's also about understanding roles and responsibilities. So no real changes there from the other ISOs. Clause 6 is where we start to see the first big change. So for those of you that have had other ones, Clause 6 is all about risk assessment. In this one, it splits it down into 3 sections. So the first thing is the AI risk assessment. The second part is the AI risk treatment. And the third bit is the AI impact assessment. And personally, I think this is probably the most important part for the entire 42001. If we're not able to understand what our risks are, if we're not able to understand what those threats are or potential mitigation is needed, we really can't build anything else. And I was talking at the weekend with a potential customer, and we were talking about how when you go for something like ISO 27001, it helps you build risk planning to do with information security. And if you went to ISO 45001, it would help you build and understand the risk associated with health and safety. But as human beings, we already have a lot of that ingrained in us. You know, we already realize that you should have steps with markings, you should have, you know, handrails, things like that. So health and safety, as human beings, we already have a good understanding of risk and risk assessment. Even for information security, as human beings, we've grown up with it for a number of years now, and we have a good understanding of risk and risk treatment. You know, we know what will happen if we leave our phone on the train, or we know what happens if there's a data breach. But do we honestly understand risk for AI? And the companies that I've worked with over the last couple of years now have actually been turning up, some of them absolutely fantastic in the world of AI with loads of knowledge, but very little understanding of how do we manage our risk? How do we manage our risk treatment? How do we deal with understanding what impact this AI might bring? So that's all covered in Clause 6. Clause 7 is back to the standard stuff. So it's resources, it's training, it's competence, it's things like that. Clause 8 it's probably the easiest clause, because clause 8 essentially just says whatever you plan to do in 6, you do. So there's no real difference in clause 8. It's intrinsically linked to 6. Clause 9, monitoring, measuring, internal audits, management review, all the usual stuff that you see within Annex SL. And clause 10 talks about improvement and continual improvement. It's interesting to see when you look at the clauses, they actually match with 27,001 2022, but they actually conflict with 9,001, which I think is a lot to do with the fact that 9,001 is due to be updated in the next year or two. So moving on to the Annex A controls. For those of you who've got 27,001 and you're used to having either 93 controls in the new standard or 114 in the old standard, you'd be pleased to hear that there is only 38. So it is a lot easier to implement than it is when you're going for something like 27,001. The structure of the Annex A controls is closely laid out to the same way that the old 27,001. So you have a larger number of chapters and then a smaller number of controls per chapter. So A2 is all about policies, really pretty straightforward. A3 is all about roles and responsibilities and how you will report concerns inside your organization. Section A5 is really important. This comes back to what Rich was saying before. This is about documenting what resources you have. And often people don't realize what resources they have for AI systems. So the first part of A4 talks about, let's document what we've got. And then the rest of A4 takes you through a bit more depth. So what data resources do we have? Do we have any tooling resources? What system and computing resources do we have? And what human resources do we have that affect this particular AI? And working with clients, it's interesting that at the start of the conversation, often people say, oh, we don't really have a lot. We might use, ChatGPT, or we might use one of the others. But actually, when you dive a bit deeper and you start to do a bit of brainstorming with them, you find that actually they do have a number of AI systems. And often they're using them to a lot greater degree than they first realized. So A4 is about getting down on paper, what do we have? A5 talks about assessing the impacts. Now that we've got them written down and we understand where they all are and what they all are, and we've done the risk assessments through the management system, A5 is all about assessing the impacts. What is the positive impacts? What are the potential negative impacts? How do those impacts, how do those things impact on individuals? How do they impact on society? And all of that is structured in A5. A6 is split into 2 sections. One is all about AI system development. So if you're not developing your own AI, then that first section would be not applicable to you. The second section talks about the AI system lifecycle. So that could be development, but it could also be the life cycle of how you've implemented, how you've deployed a particular AI. A7 drills down more into data. How did we acquire the data? What's our minimum requirement for quality? How are we going to secure data provenance? How are we going to prepare data? What happens to that data before we use it? A8 talks about interested parties. A lot of people think that because they've done it in the management system and they recognize that term, they don't have to do anything here. It's actually slightly different. Here we're talking about what documentation is needed for those people. How do those people report any concerns? There's a section in the standard that says external people must be able to report concerns not only directly to you, but they have to be able to do it anonymously as well. So it's interesting working with clients to work out how they're going to be able to put that in place. How to communicate incidents, things like that. A9, simply using it. How do we use it? What are our objectives for using it? And actually, how do we make sure that people don't misuse it? So that's what's covered in A9. And lastly, it's about third parties. Third party and customer relationships. 42,001 is slightly different from all the other ISOs. When you talk about roles and responsibilities in any other ISO, you're normally talking about people within the business. So when you're talking about who's responsible for a particular part of the management system, they're normally in-house. You may have a couple of consultants that you use for certain bits, but the majority are in-house. Whereas with AI, you could very much be talking about your supplier actually could have a major input, especially if you're using an API from another AI system, for example, or your customer could actually have a role to play when we talk about how they're going to report concerns, etc. So your customers, your suppliers, and everybody in the chain could actually have a role in making sure that the AI is run properly. So moving on to the differences and the similarities between 27001 and 42001. I won't bore you by reading them off the screen. Everyone's going to receive a copy of the slides if they like afterwards, so you can read them. But what you will notice is there are very, very similar benefits. And there's lots of good reason for that. They come from the same family of standards. If you look at the front cover of both of them, they start by saying they're all to do with information security. 27001 is all about data security. 42001 is all about AI security. And you can obviously appreciate that the two overlap massively. So things like regulatory compliance, things like providing clients with peace of mind and stakeholder confidence absolutely go hand in hand with each other. I just wanted to outline very briefly the differences between the standard and the EU AI Act. The EU AI Act, and Rich talked before about being a provider or being a deployer. There are a couple of other roles within the Act that talks about being an importer or a distributor. And as with everything in this world, the two don't align. In 42001, they talk about providers, producers, customers, partners. They don't use the other terminology that's used from the AI Act, the EU AI Act. And the main reason for that is because different countries around the world are going to bring out their own versions, and everyone's probably going to use different terminology. So the standard actually chose what they were going to use because it's a worldwide standard. So there are some slight differences there. And that can be one of the challenges when you're first implementing 42001, is to understand exactly where you fit within 42001 and also understand where you fit within the EU AI Act. And interestingly, you can quite often be taking multiple roles. It may be that you operate 3 or 4 different AIs within your business. A couple of them you might just be a user. Some of them you might be a provider. Some of them you might be a deployer. So it's not as easy as just saying that we are one rather than another. So what are the benefits? Some of them we've already looked at there. Enhanced security, increased trust, operational efficiency. Interestingly, I put on their cost savings. You know, a lot of people initially look at things like ISO and say, you know, it's a cost. And yes, it is. You know, there is a cost to implementation. However, what we often see is the cost savings over a long period of time pay itself back multiple times, because it saves time, it gives you that framework that you need, and all the other things to do with regulatory compliance and risk management, in the end, actually have a significant cost saving for you. Global recognition, definitely at the moment, more than ever. You know, if you were to go and achieve 9001 and shout about it on LinkedIn or your website or publicize it, you know, I don't think too many people would get that excited. If you start talking about you've achieved 42001, you really are in the first few people in the world. You know, the number of people in the world that have achieved this certification is quite low. I get asked every day how many people have achieved it, and we try and track it and we try and research it. We're probably talking something in the region of like 100, maybe a couple of hundred people in the world have achieved this so far. So if you can be one of the first in your industry to be able to say you're compliant, it's an absolute massive performance optimization side for you. So how do you become certified? Essentially 4 steps. Have a conversation with us, reach out to us, one of my colleagues or in the office, and we'll be able to talk you through exactly how it works and look at costs and implementation plans, etc. If you've got technical queries about the standard that you want to iron out first, feel free to reach out directly to myself. I have calls literally every day with clients talking about, is this right for them? Moving on to step 2 is the consultancy and gap analysis. So we do the initial stage with you where we undertake a gap analysis. Essentially, we read every single one of those pages, those 64 pages, every line, and we identify, are you already doing something that meets the requirements? If you are, brilliant. If you're not, we look to help you fill that gap. So whether that's a new process that needs to be built by us, whether that's a new document that you need to do, whether that's a new practice operating procedure that you need to put in place, we work with you to do that gap analysis and consultancy. We then go away and we build the management system. So we document all this for you and we send it out to you. At the same time as us doing our side of the bargain, if you like, you need to do yours. So if there are some tasks in between, steps 2 and 4 that you need to implement, whether that's sharing documentation with your team or undertaking some tasks, then that has to be done there. And then lastly, it's the pre-certification audit. Your pre-certification audit is where we attend either through Teams remotely or attend on site, and we actually undertake an audit of any gaps that were identified at stage 2. the big thing there, congratulations at the end of the day, you've passed, you go out, you celebrate. I often say to people, enjoy the champagne, because honestly, the work starts the next day. Getting the certificate is great, it's fantastic, but actually maintaining it is it's getting down to business and doing things right. So hopefully that's given you a bit more of an insight, and I'll pass back to Flora.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Peter. And equally, brilliant information there. And I'm pretty confident that everybody has a clearer understanding of what it is and the benefits of it as well, and the importance of it in the world we are moving into. So with business. So why Citation ISO certification then? And Peter explain some of that there, that you have access to experts like himself, which is the absolute key thing. It's getting the help and expertise you need to achieve what you need to achieve. So that consultancy built in, we've got in-house expertise, as you can clearly see, and they are real experts who have a true understanding of what's required and also how to implement that in the business. It's not just, that's not the only thing you're going to be focusing on. You've got a business to run and everything else operationally around and about it as well. So, and it is about the creation of that management system that works for you. It is, you're going to save time, you're going to save money, and it is as simple as it can possibly be. We don't like to overcomplicate things, just do what needs to be done and get through it. It is about having that straightforward process. And it says there you can gain certification in as little as 45 days. So it is possible to do. Obviously, it's different for different organisations, different scenarios, and that's where we can talk you through how it will work and how it would happen for you. We are obviously part of something bigger, and you do have exclusive access to Citation's HR and Employment Law Expert Advice Line. We connect you with SSIP experts, SMAS, WorkSafe, and it's we have all the connections, we have all the different organisations there that we can connect you with. For example, health and safety. You've got then that peace of mind that you need to have in the business, and of course the technology as well, which is also a big part of it. 24/7 access to bespoke, which is Atlas. Some of you may be familiar with Atlas already. It's a fantastic system built in-house to the needs of our clients. So that's the key thing here. It's around and about, again, what your needs are in a business, and we can demo that for you if you want to have a look at that as well. It is very much got everything that you need to achieve, and what Peter said there, the maintenance, keeping up your ISO compliance is key, and everybody's got to be on board with that. So the technology obviously helps that, and there is a library there available to you of customizable templates, real-time task notifications, and inbuilt reporting. So lots there to help you achieve what it is that you want to achieve, and there's loads of other benefits as well, but that go hand in hand with that. So hopefully that's given you a good idea, giving you a bit more clarification, some food for thought about AI and obviously ISO, and how that can work in your business and what's achievable in your business, and how it can help you and make you really stand out from the crowd, and gain that competitive edge that everybody, I think, in business wants to have. So it's just achieving that. That's the absolute key thing. Okay, so back to another wee question for you. How confident are you now in your current understanding of the ISO 42001? Again, just be honest, click on either A, very confident, B, somewhat confident, or C, not confident at all. Just click on one of them. I'm just interested to know. We've got some time as well. We've got time for questions. So I know there is a few questions going in there, but if you do have any other questions, please don't hesitate to pop them in. What I would also say as well is today's session is recorded, so if you do want a copy of today's recording, then you can request that at the follow-up. You will be followed up post-event, and you feel free to request that at that point as well if you want it. So then you benefit from having the whole thing, audio and the slides as well. Okay, so we've moved. Excellent. very confident is increased significantly, somewhat confident, huge increase, and only a few of you not confident at all. And that's great. That's great. But we appreciate that obviously you will still want to talk more in depth about it, get a better understanding for your individual businesses. But now you have a better understanding about the standard, what's required, why you'd want to do it, how it can help you, and the benefits, because there are many, many benefits to it. Then please do, absolutely engage with us. And we can help you with that to create a better understanding of how it will work. I'm going to as well just invite you all to, if there is a time and a date that it's best for you, so if you say a Monday morning's best, or Wednesday afternoon, or whatever else, for somebody to give you a wee call and just have a chat with you in a bit more detail. Or if there's something you specifically want, then do let us know. We can arrange that for you now. Put a time and a date in the diary so it works in your diary as well, and then just set aside that little bit of time just to talk to you in a bit more detail and give you a better idea of how it will work with yourselves individually. So please don't hesitate to pop that in the chat or in the Q&A section there, and I will pick that up and we'll arrange for that to happen for you as well, guys. So okay, I'm going to go through some of the questions. Also, while we do that, if you do want further information on any of the other ISOs, because I'm aware obviously we're only talking about the one, then feel free to just click on that as well, and I'll make sure that gets to you for sure. So okay, so first question then I can see has come through on the Q&A there is Stephen saying, just to clarify, the stage 2 will not provide the certification. Peter, that's
no, when you undertake your stage 2 pre-certification audit, you receive your certification at the end of that audit.
Brilliant, thank you. Is there an online register to check who has the ISO 42001 certification?
I wish there was, because it would make my job when customers ask how many people have achieved it so far a lot easier. The answer is that there isn't a central one. Every awarding body, because there's many awarding bodies around the world, each awarding body normally has their own. So it would take a very long time to go ahead and start to research them all. But once you're in the business, if you like, you understand which awarding bodies are most likely to have had any. So it doesn't take us too long to start compiling a list. The downside is that there can be a lag, so people could pass certification today and they don't appear on a register for a couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever. So it's never absolutely perfect, but there are ways and means. But having one central register would definitely make everyone's life easier.
Absolutely. Maybe in the future. Okay, and is 42001 designed for all roles, i.e. provider, customer, partner, etc.?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually, because it's probably the one that crops up the most, not just about particular roles, but actually about different types of businesses. 42001 is designed for any business, for anybody that's taking any role. And as I mentioned in the presentation, there's people who often have more than one role within their organization when it's specifically looking at AI. The way that the standards are written, whether it's 42001 or whether it's any of the other standards, is it's designed to be able to be implemented to any company. So whether you were a single sole trader or whether you were a multinational, it would be exactly the same standard. It would be exactly the same 64-page document that you would have to be able to demonstrate compliance with. The important thing is that it would be demonstrated in a completely different way. If you were a massive bank operating in 50 countries with thousands and thousands of people, then the way that you implement things like roles and responsibilities, the way that you implement things like risk management is going to be entirely different to if you were a single sole trader tradesman who was using AI to, I don't know, maybe improve the wording on some of the quotes. So the standard is there, and the important thing is that you work with a consultant who understands it so that they can make sure it's implemented in a way for you. If you can imagine, as I mentioned, it's the same document and it's how you implement it. If you tried to implement in a small business how a large business might do it, then actually it would become nearly impossible to operate. If you try to implement in a large business how a small business might do it, then it might not give you the controls that you need. So that's where the key to this is. And it's the most important part of any ISO, in fairness, is making sure that when you implement your system, you implement it in a way that's right for you. in the best possible way. And ISO, if done correctly, and if you put the right amount of effort in the first year or two, should get to the point where it feels like it's just happening naturally. And I've used the analogy for many years now that if you were going swimming this weekend, you might have on your to-do list go swimming, but you wouldn't have on your to-do list get wet, because it's a byproduct of going swimming. And that's what I would like everyone's ISO to feel like. I would like people to feel like they're coming to work, they're doing their job, they're running their business, and actually ISO just happens by accident. The only way you can achieve that is by putting the effort in at the start, making sure that it's designed correctly, making sure it's implemented correctly. So it can be for anyone, any size, any shape, any country. It's just about making sure that we put it in the right way for you.
Brilliant. And I think that probably kind of answers Helen's question there as well, saying that their company is just a customer, so not a provider and producer or whatever. Is there enough for us to become certified? Is it really worth it other than to look good?
It really is, because I think having worked with clients now for the last 18 months, 2 years, I'd say we quite often start the day on day one where people say, oh, we don't really use it. We use a very small bit and we're wanting to get this in place before we start using it, so that we have, if you like, the rules before we try and operate. And then by the middle of the first morning, we're suddenly realizing that actually they may be operating many different systems. Their staff may be operating systems without them even knowing. And when we talk about risks, it's actually quite surprising how many people come to the table looking to do 42 who weren't aware that their staff were using AI to do certain things, and they may be exposing the organization to potential risks. So what I would say is I've never been in a situation where there hasn't been sufficient for you to be able to implement it now. But even if there wasn't sufficient right now, having the rules in place before you go ahead wouldn't be a negative either. A bit like if you were, looking at building a house, you don't start building it and then draw the plans. You draw the plans and you build you plan everything and you order everything and then you build. So there would be actually no downside in an organization going for it on day one and putting the things in place so that you can then build off it in a secure and safe manner.
Brilliant. And similar there from Zaki, who said, is 42001 appropriate for firms that just use AI and don't develop it? Is it worth the cost and time? But I think you've just highlighted that as well, that it's not as simple as just using AI, is it?
No, it's not just about using AI. It's about all different regions and all different types and all different ways of implementing it. Cost-wise, it's, as I mentioned, it's smaller than 27001. The amount of work that's involved in it is less. So don't let that put off you. Have a conversation. Let's have a proper understanding of the organization or your organization, how it might be implemented before we give you that answer. But the reality is, for small organizations who have more users, then it's going to be a much simpler system. It's going to be a much easier system. It's going to be less resources required to implement it and to operate it. Much larger, much more complex organizations will end up with a bigger system, more resources needed. So it should be fair.
Brilliant. Robin asking there, does ISO 42001 certification satisfy the EU AI Act requirements and other regulatory obligations?
A very interesting question, mainly because of the context of it. So achieving 42001 is the framework that helps you operate your business, considering everything that you need to consider as a part of AI. One of the considerations is regulatory compliance. So if you've built your 42001 system properly, if you're operating your business and you're operating your AI in the way that your 42001 management system has been designed, would ensure that you don't breach the EU AI Act. But it's not as simple as saying, I've got 42, therefore I must be compliant with the Act. A bit like, for example, you could have a driving license to say you drive the car, but that doesn't mean you can. That doesn't mean you can drive any car you want, of any size you want, in any way you want. And it's a bit like that with 42. 42 gives you the management system. It doesn't automatically mean that you are compliant with the law, but if you operate your business in the way that this system has been built, it will prevent any issues or any breaches of not just the EU AI Act. The way the standard is set is wherever you are in the world, when you put 42001 in, you have to consider all regulatory obligations, and you have to build your system to ensure compliance with all of them. So whether you were in the States, whether you're in the UK, whether you're in Europe, whether we're talking about the EU AI Act today, but we may be talking about UK legislation in the future. So whenever you put it in, one of the first things we have to look at is what is the regulatory obligations.
Okay, great, thanks. And outside of the UK and EU, will this be seen as a recognised, accepted standard in other regions such as the UAE, Asia, etc.? Or are there alternatives we need to look at as well?
I think it's very much an international. ISO have built it as an international, and what we're seeing is take up from all over the world. It was interesting when 27001 was first released that actually the UK, albeit that's where 27001 first came from, actually it was outside of the UK that used it the most. We saw take up in the States, we saw take up in Japan being much, much greater and faster than it was in the UK, and the UK was lagged behind a few years. What we're seeing with 42001 is it is worldwide. There are people in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, the Americas, both North and South, who are already working on 42001 or have already received certification. So I think this one is going to transcend boundaries better than any of the others. It is definitely the worldwide recognized ISO standard for AI. As for alternatives, there are alternative ways of managing AI. You know, there are certain guidance. There's certain guidances done by different organizations in the States, especially, but I'm not aware of any other ISO standard or similar to an ISO standard where you could receive certification for it.
And just to add to that, when you're looking at some of the laws that have been put in the countries, take the UAE for example, with the National Artificial Intelligence Strategy, they align very, very closely with 42001. So what you'll see, like similarly to similar comparability to if you're complying with 42001, you're leaning towards compliance with some of the EU AI Act stuff. You're going to see similar things with legislations across the globe as well, because they're all kind of following a similar pattern in that respect.
Brilliant. Thank you, gentlemen. That's excellent. And the next one was, how many firms are now including ISO 42001 audit services?
It's a difficult question for me to answer, honestly. There are a number of audit companies around the world, and as you'll appreciate, I spend my life working in citation, and therefore I concentrate all my efforts on citation. I don't spend too much time. There are a few, but there aren't many. I think we're not talking, you know, if you look at how many organizations audit, for example, 9001, there's hundreds, if not thousands of them around the world. So we're definitely not on anything like that. We're talking a handful, but I wouldn't be able to give you an answer.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great. Okay, any other questions come directly to yourself, Peter?
No, the only one that I had was about, you know, who is it suitable for? And I think we covered that off earlier. So that was the only one that I'd received.
Grand, perfect. Thanks. Rich, what about yourself? Anything come directly to you?
No, everything that came to me we've covered already.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Okay, and I can see a couple of people have put in a request there for a follow-up, which we're more than happy to arrange for you to discuss the certification in a bit more detail and give you more specifics for your organisation. So happily picking those up for you, and anybody else that wants to pop that in, then again, feel free to pop that in either the Q&A or in the chat there. Just let me know the best time that we can speak to you, or we can set up a meeting for, and we'll get that arranged for you just to talk to you in a bit more detail. Okay, I think we've covered most of the questions that I can see, unless anybody's got any last minute ones they want to pop in there, then that's quite all right. You're more than got plenty of time to do that. Oh, it looks like there's another question. Yep, sorry, Frank, that's fine. Well, also it's another follow-up. That's fine, no problem at all. So if anybody does want a meeting arranged, then feel free just to pop it in there, and I will make sure that happens. And if you've got a kind of day or a specific, you know, an afternoon, a morning, or you know, a kind of time block or something, pop that in there as well, and then we'll make sure that somebody gives you a little buzz during that time, so that you've got you're free I'm worse than everybody phones you in the middle of a meeting or whatever else. So let us know when works best for you, and then we can get that arranged for you guys. No problem at all. Great. Thank you. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us, for taking time out your Friday afternoon. I hope it's been worthwhile for you, and I think the proof is there that it's been interesting and that you've learnt from it, which is the key thing. And more than happy to speak to you all going forward as well. Thank you so much to Peter and to Rich who've joined us today. Really insightful, brilliant as ever. So thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Okay, I will leave the chat and the Q&A open for a minute or two, just if anybody else does want to request then a follow-up, then just put your request in there and we'll make sure that we touch base with you and get that arranged for you guys. But thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your Friday afternoon. Thanks, guys, and have a good weekend. It is Friday. Take care. Speak soon.